Hello, everybody, and welcome to Geopolitics in Conflict show. I know it has been a while since last time I've been on the air here, so just for the sake of transparency, let me tell you what happened. I had a viral infection of sort that impacted my vocal cords, so I couldn't speak, and that's why I decided to take some time off, just so I can feel better. I'm still not 100%, but I can manage at least because I miss you guys. I truly mean it. We all of us do. So, excuse me. And to Athene Wu, well, thank you so much for your message. We miss you as well. So it is so good to be with you guys. So anyway, let me jump on exactly what we're gonna be talking about today. And by the way, I am gonna be showing up here throughout the week with some other topics of a great importance that I need you to be aware of. So I miss your intelligence, comments, your questions. Of course, we forgive those who are, either troll, whatever that is. So that we're not going to bother with that much anyway. So, in any event, let me jump on the question, on the rather the topic we're going to be talking about. But before I jump into it, always remember I am going to mention about 3 or 4 headlines that you need to keep in mind for you to have that big picture. One of them has to do with the Speaker of the House surprise visit yesterday to Ukraine. Yes, indeed. Pelosi was over there. I guess she canceled the trip to Taiwan, but she made the trip to Ukraine. So you all can read in between the lines. Second thing has to do with US Congress approving $33 billion to Ukraine in a military aid, while American families are struggling with the food prices up, energy, commodities. As a matter of fact, New York and New Jersey, just those 2 states, owes about $2.4 billion for public service companies. That tells you where things are in the U.S. while we are sending money to Ukraine. The third headline has to do with Sweden and Finland are now thinking about joining NATO, which will not be a smart thing to do. And we're gonna do Russ and I. We're gonna do a live stream on this topic. I know a little bit about because I wrote the book about Russia and I addressed Finland and Sweden on this one. The other one has to do with Poland. What interesting enough is that Poland now will accept nuclear weapons on its territory, which is a big deal, and I will tell you why. So, and the other two has to do with Indonesia welcomes the Russian president during the upcoming summit towards the end of the year, and the last one has to do with the EU eyeing a strong ties with Japan and India. So that's interesting. But what we're going to be talking about today is the idea that the European Union all of a sudden is assessing its situation right now with what's going on, of course, with Ukraine. It's assessing its relationship towards China. Now, this one can go both directions. It can be assessed towards good, or it can be reassessed towards bad. So I'm going to provide both sides of the argument and let you, of course, reach your own conclusion. Then I'll provide your conclusion with this and the question of the day. So, all right, let me jump onto this one here. Well, this one has to do with a report that was recently published by none other than Bloomberg. Bloomberg, which deals mainly with the financial aspects and the business and so forth. So their argument is that the Ukraine conflict, has led now to some sort of a profound reassessments in European capital on both on individual countries, but also on a collectively as an EU, as an organization. And that has to do with the relationship with China, of course. Well, I can see why that is, for a simple reason. And here is the reason. Because the arguments that was presented in the article did not disclose the truth. And the truth is that there is a division that exists now within Eastern Europe as to where things are headed. And I'm going to give you examples. You take 3 countries, actually 4. Take Poland. You take Slovakia. You take Bulgaria. And you take Hungary. In the case of Poland and Bulgaria, Russia made a decision that Russia will not deliver gas, period, because Poland and Bulgaria, which are European members, refused to pay in ruble. That's done. Hungary, on the other hand, which is an EU member, decided, no, we're not going to go what the European Union is saying. We're going to be paying for the gas that we receive from Russia in ruble. All of a sudden, you can just see where things are headed. Okay? And Slovakia, by the way, Russia decided to cut off the delivery of gas. So there is now this division that exists within the EU, despite what you hear. And this is why I wanted to come over today and talk to you about the content of this article, because it can go both directions, but they are not disclosing the truth. And the truth is that Europe is waking up to the reality that now the sanctions are kind of, do they have any impact? Are they impacting Russia? Or are they impacting both Europe and the United States? Well, we certainly can see, as an American, I can speak from experience based on what I am witnessing on the ground here. I go out and put gas in my car. Okay, I go out and buy food. I go to Home Depot and buy stuff that I need for construction, whatever, and I am noticing the prices. In Europe, they have the same arguments. Now, an average German is noticing the inflation that is going up. Some say to the one of about 14%. Of course, the German government is going to come forward. And this is why I'm saying that beside the individuals, countries, and citizens in Europe, that they are arguing about maybe this is the wrong direction, you get even politicians, government officials in Europe, behind closed doors, are reassessing their approach to what's going on. And why China is important? Well, we all know why. No need to beat the dead horse for that. A big market, okay? And second, you get major companies, especially in Germany, that they are doing business in China. As a matter of fact, even here in the US, companies that are headquarters here in the US, they're still doing business in China. So what we are hearing versus what it is are two opposite perspectives. And this is why I kind of find it that the article is cherry picking the information to mislead individuals who might not have an in-depth understanding as to where things are headed. And this is one of the key to why that is. So they are, especially in Germany. Well, Germany, because it's a major European economy. So you get senior policymakers or lawmakers in Germany now recognizing that the conflict in Ukraine is impacting Germany more than ever. Of course, they are not coming forward and saying, "Oh, now this is the result of the sanctions that is now pushing inflation up." Of course, their argument is saying that what we're going to have to think about our position with China as a major or the largest trading partner in Europe. Well, European knows it. They can't survive without the Chinese market. It's a reality. And could this explain, as I said earlier in the headline, could this explain why the European Union is eyeing now Japan and India? I would say the answer is yes. Italy, on the other hand, which I don't even know why Italy is getting so loud into this, given how poor its economy and small size economy anyway. And I still do not know. And no offense to Italy, I'm not putting Italy down. It's just I don't understand how come Italy has a seat on the G7. I just don't get it. So, but anyway, Italy now has strengthened its veto power, shall we say, over foreign acquisitions of Italian companies. Well, basically, what is the measure for? This is aimed directly at China. But at the same time, would you care about the Italian economy? No. If I were advising China, I would say forget about Italy's economy. Look elsewhere. And this is where that relationship now between the European Union and China is getting into in a delicate position, shall we say, despite what you hear, because what you are not hearing is the truth of the argument that the sanctions are backfiring on Europe more so than it does on Russia. And the reason I'm saying this is because I just read last week, even though I couldn't speak much, but I was able to read and all that. So I did a lot of reading. The ruble went up since pre-military operation in Ukraine. So it just tells me right there. But of course, with the decisions of China and India, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Turkey, Iran, all of them, and some other countries in the global south deciding to move forward with the financial instruments beside the dollar to conduct the trade. So Europeans now finding themselves, and as I said earlier, like major companies in Germany, they do have business in China. France, some French companies, they do have business in China. So of course they're not come out and say it openly because they want to show unity. But at the same time, the decision that policymakers make ends up impacting average Joe, average Jane, whether he in the US or in China or in Europe or in Japan or India, whatever. You know, it depends. But when you have some sort of well-established entity arguing that now Europeans are reassessing their relationship or their ties to China, well, you are misleading the population here, so, or the viewers rather, or the readers. So this is where I see the double standard. And if they are to be honest, provide the argument and let people decide for themselves. And this is where I see that challenge. Of course, this goes back to the virtual summit that took place April 1st, if I am to remember, between China and the EU. And it was very tense as far as the relationship. And why is that? It's because Europeans want China to kind of declare that they are not going to support Russia or whatever. Well, wait a minute. Who are you to decide and dictate to other country how to conduct its foreign policy? It's straightforward. China and Russia have developed a good friendship, a good partnership that I believe personally, and I argue. So I'm not surprised because I argued this point 4 or 5 years ago when I was doing the research for my Russia book, and argued back then that it's just a matter of time before both Russia and China they are going to put their historical differences aside, okay, and manage the global order the way in a new format in 21st century. So, and that's why, so when Europeans are dictating to China, it's like, wait a minute. Who are you to dictate to other countries? Did China go to European unions and said, well, you should do this or you should do that? No. So who gives the right to European or the authority to the European to dictate? And that is a crucial point for you to understand. And because Europeans rejected Chinese neutrality, because China wants to stay neutral. It didn't condemn Russia, and for its own strategic interest, you can agree, you can disagree, and you are entitled to your opinion. But also, China didn't want to get in the middle of it. So, because China has argued that Russia has its own reasons for reacting the way it did. And we all know why. So, and this is why European Union got very upset, because China wasn't willing to change its neutrality. And I don't think so they will. And they shouldn't. Because the moment China switches positions, it will lose credibility. This is exactly what just happened 48 hours ago with the trip of the Turkish president to Saudi Arabia. Why is that important? It's because the Turkish president was the one that said, I am going to bring the culprit of the Jamal Khashoggi's murder to justice. All of a sudden, he flipped. And now he dropped the case and kind of, that's it. He lost credibility. Would you trust the Turkish president now? No. The reason he did it because of the upcoming elections, and it's all driven by power. That's all it is. Of course, Turkey found out that they could not replace Saudi Arabia as the leading country in the Muslim world. Which is, we all know, it's hypocrisy, no more, no less. So it's no different than what the Europeans now trying to do with China by saying, no, you're going to have to get off that neutrality position and join the European Union in their thinking as far as targeting Russia. China's not going to do it. And it won't happen, no matter what. I can guarantee you that. So the European Union argument is that, well, even if China's ability to influence Putin is limited, it did acknowledge, European Union acknowledges that China has unique channels that can use to try to do so if it chooses. Once again, I don't see China doing that because it's not in their strategic interest. And why is this important for you to understand? Is because you have to consider what's taking place right now with Solomon Islands, of course, what's going to be happening soon within about a week or so with the Australian elections, what's going to be happening in a few months about Indonesia G20 summit, and what's going to be happening with the SCO, Shanghai Cooperation Organizations, in which Iran is going to become a permanent member. All those dynamics plays a role because to China's strategic thinking is, I gotta secure Eurasia, because Eurasia, it's where that the new global order is gonna be centered. This is no mystery, guys. It's not secret. It's nothing new per se. If you read history and learn from history, historically speaking, any country that dominates the globe had to ensure dominance of Eurasia. And any country that lost a global dominance lost control over Eurasia. And that explains now why, for example, about a week ago or 4 days or something like that, it was a meeting between China and Iran on a military level. I can just see this. Once again, I am not surprised because I wrote a book about Iran, in which I disclosed one specific trip back then of a high-ranking general from China who went to Iran, and it was reciprocated with a trip from a general from Iran to China. But this one now has a different objectives to it, and the reason being, because if you think in the Middle East, who's managing the Middle East right now? Just a quick question for you. Some will say, well, it's Turkey. No, it's not, because Turkey's economy and unemployment is in double digit. That is the reason why Turkey now went to Saudi Arabia, is to amend the relations because they are feeling the heat, economically speaking. And Erdogan wants to appear, because if the economy tanks, forget about it. Saudi Arabia doesn't have any, Saudi Arabia has lost all that influence. Yes, it still have the religious aspect because it hosts two of the most Muslim shrines in the world, Mecca and Medina. But that's enough, religious symbols, whatever, is not going to put food on the table, basically. But also you can think of it this way, that a month ago, Saudi Arabia declared that it will be willing to accept payments for its energy delivery to China in the Chinese currency. Same thing with Kuwait. So who's left in the Middle East? None other than Iran. And this is why China sees Iran as the gatekeeper in the Middle East, because China needs energy, of course, but also because of the dynamics that's going on. And this is why, just to tie this to the European Union now is willing to work towards solving the GCPOA tensions that exist between Iran and the United States. Why? Because delivery of energy, it will be from Iran. I don't think so the GCPOA is going to succeed. It would have succeeded by now. The US doesn't want it to work. It's going to be just drag on. My prediction, and I could be wrong, of course, but just this is me thinking outside the box. If this drags on, the JCPOA, Iran's going to cease to be a member of the NPT, the Non-Proliferation Treaty, altogether. Which means what? That now Iran's hands are free to go whatever direction he wants. And rest assured, if that happens, Russia and China is going to come to the assistance of Iran when it comes down to the nuclear aspect. So it behooves the United States to reach a deal with Iran. But I just don't see the willingness from the current administration to do. It's because the double standard of foreign policy. Now, there are those who will say, here I am again criticizing the American. No. I am criticizing the double standard in the U.S. foreign policy. That is causing problems. Because those policymakers, work for us. So they should think in terms of the welfare of the people, not their political career, not their interests. And if one speaks the truth, be labeled as anti-US, that's a weak argument. And I will not waver away from that, because that's the responsibility that one will have to share knowledge with you guys, with everybody. I can't just tell you what you want to hear. I can just tell you the good news. I can just tell you the flowery speeches and the big rosy picture, whatever. No, I have to tell you the truth. So this way you know. And you can think logically as to what course of action you need to take. That depends, again, if things are impacting you directly or not. Which most of the time it is the case, because geopolitics is not limited only at the helm of the top of the government. It trickles down to average Joe and average Jane. And this is why you are seeing right now this fragmentation in Eastern Europe. You get countries now thinking twice about where this is headed. I take Poland as an example, which I think, and again, I could be wrong, but I think Poland is being pressured. Poland doesn't strike me as that weak to be just whatever. No, it's been pressured. And for Poland to accept nuclear weapon on its territory, that is not good at all. Rafael, thank you very much for your super sticker. No, you wrote, may I know how did you get your achievement medal in this joint service ones? I don't discuss this kind of stuff in an open forum here. That's back in my work at the Pentagon, the whole United States government. So, but the one on the left, that's the I won the gold on the Worldwide Language Olympics. So that's for a military only, and that's what it is. So the other ones, it was a medal from the Assistant Joint Chief of Staff, General Peter Corelli, and the other one was from two agencies within the government. So thank you very much for your question. So anyway, to go back to my point, which was, I forgot. So anyway, so the idea of Poland, so now for me personally, and I guess, again, this is my own assessment, for Poland to accept now the deployment of nuclear weapons on its territory, it tells me that they've been pressured. When in reality, Poland could have played a major role, especially when it comes down to the Belt and Road Initiative, because Poland is strategically located, especially when it comes down to its port, that it can benefit from the trade with China to improve its economy. I've spent time in Poland. I've been in Poland before. It's not your rich country, but they had the opportunity. And now they are following blindly. That's why Russia now went ahead and cut off the delivery of gas. Same with Bulgaria. So you get Romania also. Hungary is being smart in this because they are looking long term. As a matter of fact, which is not being disclosed by Western media, French president, the re-elected president Emmanuel Macron, disclosed in a closed session, was not disclosed openly, that it is time to sit down and have a conversation with the Russians regarding the European security. And his argument was that Europe cannot live without reaching a deal with the Russians. It's a fact. So it tells you right there where the division that exists. Sadly, for us in the United States, average Joe, average Jane do not understand the dynamics as to why our government sending our taxpayers' money. Why are we giving this many billions to Ukraine for? When we do have our infrastructure that is crumbling, when we have our the high energy prices, the food, the commodities, a broken infrastructure. As a responsible citizen, it is my duty to bring those questions to the fore. Now, some might say, well, you're criticizing the US government. No, I'm not. I am stating the facts because it is my tax money that's being paid to the government. The government has generated $1.8 trillion in the first 4 months of the fiscal year 2022. So why waste the money? Because it's not theirs. Well, just because it's not yours doesn't mean you're just going to waste it. There is families here in America that needs assistance. And I'm not saying handout. I don't believe in a handout. But you're going to have to be responsible. You, the government in this case, be responsible about how things are going. So what are we going looking for to spend money elsewhere when we have our own issues? And that's legitimate concern. And this is where the Europeans, some countries in Europe, now are thinking in terms of, okay, where this is headed up. You take the example of Lithuania. Well, Lithuania had a problem with China. I didn't have a problem with China before. All of a sudden, Lithuania is having a problem with China, which was a blow to Lithuania and the West, for that matter. And why is it? At first, it's because the Baltic states suffered now a collapse in exports to China. And all for a reason, and you all know why. I'm assuming you do. It's because it entered a conflict with Beijing over Taiwan. Why? Because it was pressured to do so. Well, it's no different than what's going on in Australia right now. So, and I'm following up the their elections for the prime ministers, and the lies emanating from Canberra regarding how great the economy is, when in reality it is not. And there are other aspects we can't talk about here on this platform. So Lithuania is suffering the same. And this is what I'm saying. Europe, Eastern European countries, or the EU for that matter as a whole, are like saying one thing but thinking another thing, because they don't have the gut to stand up for what they stand for. And usually anybody, when it comes down to even human behavior, when you're dealing with the people, if you couldn't stand up for what you believe in, I'm going to have to think twice about dealing with you. Because that tells me right there, if you couldn't take stand, then what do you stand on? Of course, I understand. When it comes down to countries, the first thing they have to think about is their strategic interest. I understand that argument. But at the same time, you have to have some principles to stand on. Otherwise, your foreign policy is nothing but a double standard. It's nothing but a lie. And this is where now Europeans are finding themselves struggling. What do we do? What do we do? So the EU in this case now is saying, well, we're going to have now to aim at Japan and India to increase cooperation with. Really? And this is what they're saying. The reality is completely different because the facts speak for themselves. You can ignore the sheer size of the Chinese market. Simple. And if the European Union think that they can influence India of changing its position regarding India's dealing with Russia, they are mistaken. I don't know if you guys are aware of the trip of Boris Johnson, which somebody that's like what's the word? He's like a clown. I call him a clown. When he went to India, support India and this and that, but trying to pressure India to change its position. They said no. Because India also is seeing where things are headed and they don't want to be left behind, and rightly so. Yes, there are issues in India. Yes, there are the tensions with China over the borders, but those can be resolved in a peaceful manner. And I strongly believe once the dust settles on this Ukraine conflict, Russia could play a role in bringing the two together. It's of benefit to all parties involved. I mean, you look at now in the UK, which again is not been disclosed as far as where inflation is. I had someone from England that really sent me an email one time. It's like, well, you're absolutely correct, Dr. O. Is the idea of that the government is not disclosing. There is not enough items on the shelves. And all this stems from where? Bad policies, failed policies. And this is where it becomes the question of those political leaders, decision makers, whatever you want to call them. Are they thinking for their welfare of the people that they represent, or are they thinking of their own political career? So Europe, in this case, the EU, for the countries that decided to go that route without thinking, now they are realizing that train has already left the station. What do we do now? And this is why I said, just to go back to my earlier point, the assessment that the article provided is misleading because it didn't provide both sides of the arguments. And this is what I wanted to share with you. So it behoves the European to start thinking, because mind you, that China has outperformed both the US and the EU as the largest trading partner a year and a half ago or so, with a total trade that was estimated at about $868 billion. And I'm going to put a link for you guys to see that one. So Europeans, of course, companies is going to be sort of behind closed doors trying to convince policymakers of figuring out a deal, how to work. This is why sanctions, sometimes we hear sanctions, but who sanctions end up hurting or impacting? Is it governments? No, it end up impacting average people. So, Rafael, once again, thank you for your super sticker. You wrote, I believe that stern warning did get to Bojo 02. I don't know what Bojo stands for. So if you can explain that one, that would be great. So thank you again. So the idea of Europeans going to have to really figure this out moving forward, because here's the thing. The conflict in Ukraine is going to drag on. This is not going to be over anytime soon. And once the dust settles, it's going to be a different map. Mark my word on it. It's going to be a different map. So, and what makes even matter worse, which I will address with Ross when we do the live about Finland and Sweden considering joining NATO, which will be a strategic mistake of a historical proportion. It will be a big, big, big mistake. So we'll deal with that when we address that one. So basically, the bottom line to where things are is that the conflict in Ukraine truly has disrupted now a fragile supply chain. We're all seeing that there are certain container ships that have not been delivered, and this is why that impact that the conflict has is on a supply chain, on trade routes between both Europe, and China. And this one is leading to what? Of course, it's like a chain. Every part impacts the other. Now it's leading to higher energy prices, higher prices in raw material, the cost. And of course, geopolitical consideration also has affected the European companies operating in China. And this is why I'm saying, oh, thank you, Raphael. I much appreciate you explaining that. Boris Johnson, indeed. Thank you so much for your super sticker once again. So this one brings me to that point of Indonesia. Why Indonesia is saying ahead of time. I know the meeting is going to be, I think, towards the end of November, early December for the G20. They already stated to the Russian president, you are welcome to come in if you want to. And as a matter of fact, no country has the authority to dictate to other countries who attend and who does not. Otherwise, what's the point? And this is where the tension between European Union and China, for European Union to dictate to China to change its neutrality or to change its position or to influence its foreign policy. No, they have no right to do that. It's like China has no right dictating to European Union. So it's common sense. And this leads me to my conclusion here. So the way I see it personally, moving forward, is that European Union, they're going to have now to decide how far they are willing to go with this idea of sanctions. Because apparently sanctions are hurting them more so than they are impacting Russia and whatever. Second thing they're going to have to think about, US dollar, just this morning, one up very high against the euro. So the euro, as far as currency, is going to be basically useless down the road once the infrastructure for the trade between China, Russia, India, Pakistan, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Global South takes place. So it's almost like at that end, the European Union would be left to wonder, what do we do now? Which will be too late anyway. So the way I see it is that the stage is set. The meteoric rise of China, the decline of the US share of global power, which usually is displayed through the failed policies, foreign policy that is, the dissolution of a global order that no longer it was once, and the possibility of that strong partnership between Russia and China and other countries down the road. What it suggests to me personally is that shift, of course, of the global order or global balance of power that is already underway. It's a fait accompli, whether we in the West like it or not. Of course, we don't want to hear it, but it's a fait accompli. So, and that tells me also we should not dismiss, given the signs and the trend that I am watching, we should not dismiss the warning signs of the return of Russia as a player on the global stage. That is, after all, is a nuclear superpower, or certainly second to none with respect to destructive capabilities. And those are, ladies and gentlemen, those are facts that we can't just blow off and ignore and overlook and think of. No, that's a reality that exists on the geopolitical landscape that we have to consider and take into consideration as to see where the trend is headed in the 21st century. Once again, just to go back briefly here to wrap up things here, I found it very disturbing that Poland has accepted the deployment of a nuclear weapon on its territory. Does Poland does not understand that it will be first to be burnt? The Solomon Island tensions that is now increasing behind the scenes, now with the involvement of Japan, UK, Australia, New Zealand, the US, and all this aimed at, is it we preparing for the shift of the chaos to the Pacific? Those are legitimate questions that any average individuals with some knowledge of global affairs and geopolitical landscape will ask, because those are the ones that's going to determine how the world's going to move forward. And yet, some of us are hoping for that peaceful coexistence among countries, which will benefit all of us. Why the tensions? Why the chaos? Why create this nightmare of destabilizing this and create tensions here and there, rather than live and let live? We all can live in peace, which will benefit all of us. No, I am not a dreamer. I speak based on reality. It can be achieved if there is the will and determination. And that starts with us, guys, with us being informed to understand. There's more of us than they are. Just keep that in mind. Here is my question for you for the day. Can the European Union have an independent foreign and security policies? I repeat, can the European Union have an independent foreign and security policies? I look forward to seeing you guys next time. And as always, it was so good to see you. Stay informed. Till next time. Bye-bye.